Hey, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you, Brandon?
Doing excellent, doing excellent. Thank you for joining us today. I know everybody's looking forward. We got a great participation. It's jumping up now. We're already over 70 participants in this room, so that's great. So you're going to be sharing with us the 5 pillars of raising unlimited capital. So we'll be watching the Q&A box. Make sure you put the Q&A. The best place to put your questions is in the Whova Q&A, because if we don't get to those questions during the session, Ketan can type the answers later after the fact. So you can do it in Zoom, and that's a good way to do it. But the best possible way is to put it into the Whova app in the Q&A, not the chat. Chat, just to remember, just to keep it all streamlined. Chat's more for commentary. Hey, great job. Hey, love the presentation. That's the chat. Question, hey, how do I, raise unlimited capital? Put that in the Q&A. Okay. So I will go ahead and just remember, Ketan is one of our sponsors, so make sure you check him out both at the exhibitor booth and at the sponsor booth. So make sure you check that out, and I will let you go ahead and take it over, sir. I'll shut off my video.
Perfect. Hi, everyone. I'm very excited to talk about capital raising. And as you guys know, it's a very, very interesting topic, and we'll be taking a deep journey. And I've prepared a presentation with you, so I'll just share my screen right now. Okay. So we will be talking about the 5 pillars of raising unlimited capital. But before I dive into it, you guys are already here. I just want to make sure you get the maximum value out of the presentation. So start thinking about a particular challenge you have in terms of raising capital and an outcome you want. That's number 1. Number 2 is information versus insight. Information makes us feel good. We learn something, but we don't really get an impact out of it. And I define insight as something that changes the way you see your business and the way you see your challenge in the world, right? So throughout this presentation, you might get 1 or more insights. Definitely write them down and take some action right away to make the most use of this. And the last thing is, we have about 45 minutes and some Q&A. So just be focused, take some notes, and stay engaged to get most value from this presentation, right? So tell you a little bit about myself. In a quick snapshot, I used to be a pharmacist, and I started buying single family 3-unit, 5-unit buildings. Eventually, I realized it's just going to take me a long time. So I bought a senior care business, grew it to 40 employees, put it on management, and I just got more time back. And then I started raising capital, and my whole journey started there. So in terms of my real estate experience, my particular skill set is raising capital. I've done over $10 million of capital. I have created a multi-million-dollar rental portfolio, ground up development, flipping. Those are some things in my wheelhouse as well. In terms of my coaching expertise, because I realized that at the end of the day, the way we think, feel, and act, the mindset has a huge, huge impact on the results we get. So first, we know the strategies and techniques and the information, but then we need these high performance mindset, right? So I studied that with Tony Robbins, Dr. Joe Dispenza, Wim Hof, and I combined both of the things together to really create an impactful program. So now we could dive into the skill of raising capital. So the number 1 question before I share with you the 5 pillars is understanding why it's important to master the skill of capital raising. Everybody knows about it, that, hey, if I have more capital, I could buy more deals. I could do bigger deals, but that is just a surface level why. We need to go a little deeper. And I'll tell you a quick story. When I came to this country, I was 19. I was not speaking a word of English. And anybody who comes to this country understands that we need to learn the language in order to be successful. But I really anchored a deeper why. I knew that my future income potential, my success, my fulfillment, my impact, everything is indirectly tied to me learning the language. And I gave it my all. And the same thing applies here. A lot of real estate entrepreneurs understand the first part, but I'm going to share with you 3 more things. So number 2 is more opportunities and flexibility in your business. If you have created a database of investors, What happens is today you could be in multifamily, tomorrow you could go into self-storage. Your business has more flexibility and you could transition around. And if you have a broker dealer license, you could partner with other people and all sorts of avenues open up for you. Another thing is confidence when you submit the LOIs. A lot of times what happens is once the deal is signed, you have 45, 60 days and the clock is ticking, and it creates a lot of stress. Or sometimes you're not even comfortable putting the offer out because you are not sure if you will be able to raise the equity. But if you have mastered the skill and if you have developed a database, you could gain properties you could buy and you could get some comfort. And then the last but not the least thing, it's a business that builds on itself. Once you put in the work, develop the relationship and trust with the investors, they are going to bring more referrals, friends and other family members and coworkers. So now you don't necessarily need to do additional work, and you could comfortably raise $2 million, $5 million, $10 million a year, which means you could buy X amount of properties automatically and grow your business. So that's why it's very, very important to master this skill. And now here are these 5 pillars that are absolutely must to master if you want to raise millions and millions of dollars. And we will take a deep dive into each of these pillars. So pillar number 1 is strategy. And I knew about this at all when I started my business, right? What happens is when you don't have a good strategy, your effort is going all over the place and you are not getting the maximum results from your effort. Think about it in terms of building a house or any building. We always have architectural plans, right? So this way we know what would be happening at the site. We know what the contractor or the developer needs to do. Now think about it if we don't have a plan and we go to the site every day and we are not sure if we're putting a window up today or a bathroom up today, right? It sounds very silly, but the same thing happens in the business of capital raising. Calling some investors here and there, shooting some messages on LinkedIn, it's just not a good strategy. So you need a strategy, and the key is you need your own personal blueprint. What has worked for somebody else might not work for you. And what will work for you might not give the best results to somebody else. And I'll tell you what are those core components that go into this strategy. Once you have a strategy, what happens is it provides you clarity. So you are not wasting energy going in all directions. You know exactly what you need to do. And once you are clear, taking action becomes much easier. When you're not clear, it just becomes chaotic. Should I start a YouTube channel? Do I need to do this? Do I need to upgrade my website? There are so many things and you have limited amount of time. So very, very important to create your blueprint. Doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be some kind of blueprint to get going. And as you get going, you could revise the blueprint with the feedback that you receive. So now let's dive into what goes into your personal blueprint to raise capital. So the number one thing would be developing your ideal investor profile. What kind of investors are you really looking for? Sure, they are passive, but are you looking for investors that have never invested in real estate or they have invested in real estate? What kind of return they are looking for? What kind of strategies do they like? Do they like development? Do they like value add? What is their risk tolerance level, right? These are some basic level things, but it goes in much detail. Once you have this profile developed, it's much easier. So think of this in terms of catching a fish. If you're going out in the open ocean and hoping to catch a fish, what are your odds of success? Versus if you're going to find a mackerel. Now you know what kind of boat to use, what kind of tackle to use, et cetera, et cetera. It's defined, right? So you want to define your ideal investor profile. Then the next step would be identifying your niche. If you're a physician or an engineer, you might already have a database of investors, and that might make a lot of sense to you. If you have some kind of experience with stock market and you have connections or people who only invest in stocks, that could be your initial niche. For me, it made sense to get other pharmacists and doctors involved in the beginning, right? So this way your marketing efforts could be targeted. So And these things too, everybody has a different niche, so you will have to play around. There's no right answer, but you need to have some direction to take action, and then the feedback will make it clear. Then the next thing would be creating a powerful story, a story for your business and your personal story as well. So what happens when I started this, I was too excited about the market and the team and the analyzing and the underwriting and the best deal. And I was talking about that to investors, but I was missing a key piece. Any passive investor or anybody who's investing with you, they want to make sure they could trust you as a person and as a business person as well. And how does that trust develop? The trust develops by sharing your why, sharing your story. So I started telling them that, I was a pharmacist, and I realized that at the end of the day, without passive income, I will have to be stuck to this job forever, right? And I would tell them detail, nothing to do with the actual opportunity I'm presenting. And you know what? Those are important things as well, the deal and the return and the market, but those things you could get to it afterwards. So have that personal story. Also, having a brand story is important. What do you believe, why your brand is better? Or for example, you believe that bigger metros are overrated and you only like smaller metros because of these things, or you don't like properties that don't have these criteria, or you like properties with. So you want to extract all of that stuff, and you want to put that in your story, whether you're talking with the investor, whether an email goes out, your pitch deck, your website, all of the contact points, because the more they know about why you're doing this thing and what your strategy is for your business and, your checkpoints and things like that, it becomes much easier for them to have the conversation. Is just talking about the deal and the matrix and the return. All those things would come later, right? Another huge point in your strategies, knowing your strengths and using it wisely. So we live in this world where sometimes it feels like, man, everybody has a podcast and I don't have a podcast, and I don't know how to start it. It's not really my thing, which is absolutely okay. Some people already have powerful networks through their work or through their spouses or anything like that. Some people are really good at in-person presentation. Some people love writing blogs and articles and things like that. So find your key strengths that you actually enjoy, and then you build your strategy around it. All of the things out there, the videos, the YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, podcasts, all of these things are just strategies. Doesn't mean you need to do it all. You need to pick something that you enjoy and something where you could add value. And we'll talk about that in the step number 2, adding value. So, and then the last thing would be assessing your bandwidth. So if you already have a full-time job and you have limited time to find the deal and do the due diligence and all that, then you just have to be careful. You just have to make sure that the strategy you built is suited for that, right? Somebody who has 20, 30 hours a week to execute the strategy might not be good for you. So look at how much time you have. What's going on in your business? Are you focusing on some other domains, or you have 2 or 4 or 6 months to focus on capital raising? If you have that time, then you could change your strategy. If you don't have that time, then you need to pick something else, right? Your strategy is going to be different money. Can you get some kind of admin help, or can you advertise, things like that, right? So all of these things form your own capital raising strategy. And it's going to take a little bit of time, a little bit of energy to do this, but I guarantee you, you're going to get very powerful results instead of not having a strategy and just going all over the place, which is something that I did in the beginning. And then I learned about this. So this concludes the pillar number 1. Now we will dive into pillar number 2, which is marketing, or AKA finding and connecting with new investors. So at the core of it, all you're trying to do is add value to your investors. And when you add value, you build trust, you build the expertise in your particular niche, whether you're doing hotels or self-storage or multifamily, whatever your niche is, you're showing them why they should invest their money with you. And how do we break this thing down to make it very simple? On a 30,000 foot overview, it's basically either speaking, writing, video, or events. So you need to pick a thing that resonates very well with you. So you just pick that one thing to begin and start thinking outside the box. Like I mentioned earlier, there are all kinds of strategies, and you don't necessarily have to do one thing or another, right? And very, very important piece. And if you are just starting out with this thing, I would highly recommend to start with one lead engine. Just one thing in the beginning, because too many times we have the extra time and energy and we start two channels at the same time, and then we don't get the results. And I'll explain that later on in the presentation. But pick one thing that resonates with you. And now I'm going to talk about how to use that engine. So whether it's podcast, whether it's your YouTube channel, writing blogs, connecting with people on LinkedIn, whatever it is, right? You start generating content, providing value to your investors. And a common roadblock that people face when they start the marketing process is they are not sure what to write about. So you could write about your experiences. You could interview other people in the industry. You could just pick on trends. You could talk about your past deals. And you don't need to be perfect. The first 20, 50 articles, videos, or anything you do is just going to be an experiment. And after you hit that point, you'll get more clarity that, okay, I like this format. This is the way I like it best. This content works better for my audience versus that content. But in the beginning, you just need to get started. And what's that content doing? Bringing the leads into your system, building the connection and trust over time. And your goal is to have your investors come on the strategy calls. So the reason I said you need to consider one engine is because that way you could pivot and you could tweak things. So once you pick something, whether it's podcast or anything, you start these things, you'll have to make some changes, the way you pitch to the guest, the way your ending is. And there are so many little things that come into place. And when it's just one, it's much easier to focus. So you want to prove that that model is working, that LinkedIn or whatever you're in. Once it's working, you want to make sure it's repeatable, that this wasn't just a chance. It just didn't work randomly. And after that, you could scale that model. And then after that, you could just pick another channel. And I'm just going to show you a quick highlight of how it could look like for you. I do consult with some companies as well to build their marketing ecosystem and whatnot when it comes to passive investors. So this is an example. Whether it's LinkedIn or podcast or Facebook, you pick one thing and the potential investors are coming in. And then you nurture those leads, email chains, newsletter, webinars, videos. There's all kinds of techniques. And eventually you're bringing them onto strategy. And we want to automate the lead nurture process. This way you don't have to spend every living minute. And we will be talking about in the leverage section on how to automate things as well and systems as well. Just a rough idea. It could look a little different for your business. Now, here are some important steps. If you are already doing marketing and if you are not getting the results, I see these 4 common culprits all the time when it comes to getting results. So number 1 is not having that marketing strategy like we talked about, not having a clear message, not doing things with one channel and being all over the place. That's number 1. Second thing is a limiting belief. So back when I was running the home care business, it's just deep down, you're thinking, there's just so much noise out there. There are so many people raising. Would this really work? I'm the new guy on the block. Is anybody even responding to this thing? And deep down, I hope it works. I'm just throwing these things, right? So you don't want to come from that space. Another big one is consistency. So you give it a go for a month or 2, and then you do not reach that tipping point. So very, very important to reach the tipping point until you start seeing results. And I'm going to give you a quick example. I'm in Boston. And if I have to go to New York, it's about 300 miles. I could look at the GPS. I could look at the odometer on my car, and it tells me I drove 100 miles, I drove 200 miles, and I know how far I am from New York. Unfortunately, with marketing, what happens is everything is in the head. So we really don't have any indicator and we really don't know how far we are. So most likely we just overestimate how things are going to work and we stop too early. And I have done that multiple times in my other businesses as well. So very, very important to have the consistency and time. It might take 3 months or 6 months. You just have to be dedicated. If not, what would happen is you'll just pick another channel and the whole thing repeats. So these are the big core concepts that you should be aware when you're marketing for passive investors. If you're not getting the results, most of the time something's hiding in one of these. Okay, now we are going into pillar number 3, which is systems. So without systems, what happens is it becomes very challenging to get results, because keep in mind, besides raising capital, you will be doing some other function in your business. Maybe talking to brokers and finding the deal, due diligence and paperwork and managing your team. Or if you're bringing capital to sponsors, like something like I do, you have to do due diligence on them and your broker dealer activities. And there's so many things going on. So if you don't have systems in place, you have extra time, you'll take some action, and then the weeks when you get busy, nothing would happen. So you need a plan to consistently take action. Same thing with your content creation. You need a plan. So you need to create everything in a batch. So for example, if you're publishing 1 article a week, make sure you have 8 or 10 articles that you wrote in one batch when you're in that zone. So now you don't need to worry about 2 months. There's a system. There's a list of topic that's already there and that you keep adding to your internal system, whatever that works for you. This way, it's just automatic. Once a month, you do content creation, or once a week, right? You need a system to have a new lead come into your system and that going into strategy call. Right? You need a system to measure everything. There's a German proverb, what gets measured gets improved. So if your goal is to raise $1 million this year, and let's assume that's $50,000 an investor, that comes to 20 investors. And let's assume that you are closing 1 in 4 investors that come on phone with you. That's 80 leads. So if you measure every month that goes by, you could look at it. And if it means 80 means, let's say that comes to 7 leads or so, 6.5 lead a month. And last 2 months, you only collected 2 leads, then it tells you where the challenge is. You need to get more leads. If you're not converting the lead, then it tells you something else. So you need some kind of measurement system in place to see how your business is going, because this way you could tweak and change things. You also need a system for investor communications, whether newsletters or emails or whatever those things are. So the benefit of systems are you could track things. They could be automated, semi-automated with your staff or VA or your team member. And this way you are not spending precious time thinking about what to do next. It's already planned out. You've already done. You just plug and play. Now we'll go into step number 4. So a quick recap. To do all this, you have created your strategy. After your strategy, you created your marketing plan and the things we discussed, and you started giving value. After that, you put systems into place. So now you have investors you're talking to, they have committed, and you're already raising capital. And now this is very, very important. Now it's time to leverage everything, right? So first thing is leveraging your time. How do you leverage your time? There are only so many investors you could talk one at a time. So your time is very, very valuable. So you might want to get a VA. You might get to get an assistant. That's one thing. The second thing is keeping some kind of time log and making sure your personal productivity is very good. So you're not spending unnecessary time blocking things. So making sure the 2 hours that you time block are for content creation or to talk with investors or whatever you need to do. Getting better at investor calls, having some kind of format, some kind of system with meetings and things like that, right? So you want to leverage the time you have. After that becomes leveraging the money. You might want to consider investing money back into your business. So maybe sponsorship, maybe paid ad spend or referral partnerships, all kinds of things you could do to grow your business faster. Then the time comes to leverage your content. So if you have videos, you could convert the videos into articles. If you've written 10 articles, maybe you could take 4 of them, make that into a quick ebook. All sorts of things you could do. If you're running a podcast, you could pull micro content from that to publish on social media. So if you've already spent the time and energy creating the content, now it's time to leverage it. So for example, my YouTube videos also go on LinkedIn, on my Facebook group. It doesn't really take me extra time. And then leveraging technology, using softwares to manage your investor databases and using webinars to educate your investors and all kinds of automation tools and things like that. And then also leveraging your existing investor base, getting referrals, making sure they're getting great service. So this way they bring colleagues and coworkers and family and all that, right? Having some referral program and all that, leveraging that as well, making sure their needs are taken care of. And now the last but not the least, I saved the most important part for the last pillar, which is the mindset. And how I define mindset is the way we think, feel, and act. The way we think, feel, and act creates a lens, and we are looking at our business through that lens. Whether we are getting results, not getting results, our challenges, everything gets viewed from that lens. So very, very important to be aware of your mindset. And a lot of these things are subconscious, the fears and the beliefs. We are not really aware of it. Like an iceberg, you're only seeing the tip, but it's controlling the way you make decisions and all of those things, right? So very, very important piece. We'll talk about beliefs, which is the core of mindsets. So what we'll do for beliefs is basically, number one thing with beliefs when it comes to capital raising is that you have to be aware what your limiting beliefs are. So for people who are starting out, it always comes like, I haven't raised capital. What if I fail in my first deal? I don't know what to talk about multifamily. Everybody has already talked about all this, right? What if I don't raise the enough capital needed to close the deal? All sorts of things are going to come up in your head. So very, very careful in being aware of what those limiting beliefs are for you. Everybody's different. And then the fear. Again, this is a subconscious thing. So when I was running that business with 30, 40 employees, my subconscious belief was like, I need to be in the office. How can you run a business like this? Until I challenged that belief, right? When I climbed the mountain with Wim Hof, wearing shorts and basically nothing else, and it's 20 Fahrenheit, I really challenged my belief. So we have to challenge those beliefs, because at the end of the day, the biggest risk is not taking the risk. And the mindset is going to come into play multiple times. Once you start raising capital, let's say now you're raising $5 million a year. Now you have to hire staff. So you might feel like, well, I'm not good at managing people, or I hired people in the past and it didn't work out for me. It could be anything. Or you might feel like, well, I'm not sure if I could reinvest this money back into the business. I really need it for future growth or for living expenses. All kinds of things will constantly come up. So very, very important to basically have your mindset dialed in, right? And everybody's different. So step number one is to make sure you're aware of the limiting beliefs or the fears. And then once you're aware, 50% of the battle's already won. You know what you need to work on, and then you could work on. So the core of this is you need a solid mindset. You need the strategy, right? Two things going hand in hand. If your mindset is great, but strategically you are not sure how to spend your time, what kind of actions to take, it's not going to work. Otherwise, the other flip side of the coin is knowing what you need to do, having all the technical knowledge and all the skill sets, but there's some gap in the mindset. But when you combine both, the results are going to be unstoppable. So these are the 5 pillars. And to recap again, what you do is you start with a solid strategy that works for you. Then you take that strategy, you start creating your marketing material, and you start going out there and connect with investors. Then you take all that things, put that into systems. That way it's consistent. You could measure it, you could tweak it as needed. And then you start leveraging what you have already built with all of these things. And then throughout the process, you just become aware of your mindset, whether it's beliefs or fear or anything like that. And this really helped me to not only raise capital, but like I said, I wasn't even speaking English. Getting the doctor of pharmacy in an accelerated pace was a very challenging task. But pretty much it follows the same rhythm. I just had that strategy and I developed the mindset to go out there. So now, very, very important thing. What are the next steps? You need to ask yourself, what is your number one challenge from the 5 pillars that I mentioned? You might have more than one, but you need to ask, what is the number one? Is it not having a strategy? Is it you not leveraging? Is it you not having the correct mindset? And then the next question is, what are the 3 action steps you could take to solve that challenge? Think about that question. And then the last question is, how impactful will be a $1 million raise? And I'll tell you something real quick. With my very, very first deal, I needed $25,000 to buy a $100,000 property. The problem was I had no money. So I convinced 2 of my pharmacist friends to give me $8,000 each and partner within my deal. So now my problem became from $25,000 to coming up with $8,000. And I didn't have the $8,000. So what I did is I opened up a 401k with my employer, and for 2 months deposited every check in there. It came close to $4,000, and my employer matched it dollar to dollar. And I took those $8,000 out to buy the first $100,000 property. If I had not bought that property, I wouldn't have on this crazy coaching journey and raising money, and who knows what's coming next. So I guarantee you that the first $1 million raise, think about how much impact you will be creating for your investors, for your family, and for yourself. It's not about just making the money from it, but it's going to change you as a person. And you would have no idea what's going to come next, whether in real estate or in life or anything like that. So whatever that challenge is, there's so much value, because at the end of the day, you're going to become the kind of real estate entrepreneur that looks back at all of these challenges, and it has become really greater than the challenges. And there's so much value to it, besides the usual monetary success in controlling millions of dollars of property. That's one aspect. The other aspect that's less talked about is you'll be a different person and you'll love yourself even more. So, and final thing is, if not now, then when? There is never a good time where everything's aligned. When I left pharmacy and bought the senior care business, again, I had to do creative financing. I already had hundreds of thousands of dollars of student loans, and it was not good time at all. But I'm glad I made the plunge. So whether it's time-wise, commitment-wise, there's never a good time to start the venture or tackle your biggest challenge. The perfect time's now. And to continue the journey, what I'm doing for Dan's group, the MFIN attendees, I want to support you guys in your capital raising endeavors. So for a limited time, I have a $2,000 off the Capital Raising Pro system, where we go into deep dive about all of the pillars we talk about. And if you want to take advantage of that, you could either go to my website, you could send me an email, or you could go to the exhibitor booth, and I already have a packet, a handout you could download that gives you more information on the program. And this would really enable you to get that strategy, get that mindset, so you could raise capital to grow your business. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what you buy, where you buy, what you do with it, you will always need capital. Doesn't matter what the market changes, the strategies changes, the asset classes changes, you'll always need capital. So it's a life-saving skill that you might want to master. And now we could open up the floor for a Q&A session. Okay, let's see. I do have a question. Who do you recommend for building your website? So it depends on the budget you have. If your budget's very, very tight, you could, if it's extremely tight, you could go with the template, Wix or Squarespace or something like that. If not, you could just hire a developer from Upwork. But the key to the website is making sure you have the power components, having a lead magnet to make sure you're collecting the emails, and make sure your story is out there in your About You page and all of those things. And then, yes, yep. Sure. I have another question. Can you raise capital without a social media presence? Absolutely, you can. So I know that we live in a social media world where it just feels like everybody has to be on. I actually raised a lot of my capital offline with one-on-one context. Absolutely, there are a lot of people out there where they just have the website, the decks, their story is powerful, but then they are connecting with people at events or meetups or through the networks they already have. So it's not, and that's why it's very, very important to pick a strategy that you actually enjoy doing, because if you're enjoying it, you're going to get very, very different results. Okay. I also have what is your value statement? What is your what is that you coach? Please elaborate. Yes, so I coach peak performance strategies for real estate entrepreneurs. So one thing would be the mastering the skill of capital raising. The other thing would be really get your thoughts, emotion, and actions, making sure you have the clarity, you have the strategy to grow your business. So maybe capital raising, you've already done it, but you are not sure what's really blocking you. Are you not taking enough action? Are you not taking the right action? I put those peak performance components into your business, so your life will start changing. You'll get more results. I also have another question. Was developing your marketing funnel more impactful to raising capital versus having a strong built-in network before you become a capital raiser? So if you already have a strong network, you could start working there. And you already have leads to work in, but the funnel concept would help you to keep track of those leads and build the trust and connection. But you don't need to necessarily wait to have that strong network. You could still develop a simple, easy funnel where you just know that, anybody that comes in through my network, maybe they will receive this email guide, or I'll bring them to the call. It depends on your particular situation. Okay, I have another question. I know that you mentioned VAs. Where do you visit to find yours? Do they handle your CRM and all of your marketing campaigns, or do you manage that yourself? So there's a lot of places for VAs. There's a place called Outsource School. They teach you how to find VAs. A lot of my clients use that, and how to actually train your VA. You could go on Upwork.com and find VAs. For me, I prefer to have somebody in US, so I do have a marketing manager that kind of handles the marketing side of the things for me, including my CRM and a lot of the basic things. So depending on what your budget is, but make sure anybody you hire, you will have to train them no matter what their skill set is, based on your business and what your objectives are. And then it's very normal for, if people don't work out, it's okay. You could just basically get the next person. Also have, will the slides be available? Sure, I'll be happy to share the slides with everybody as well. I'll check with Brendan and we will get it uploaded. Okay, I have a question. What CRM are you using? So for me, I like to keep things simple. So I just use Airtable, which is like an elevated Excel sheet. And that works for me. if you want, there's a software called Syndication Pro. There's all kinds of software. But if you are starting, I would say keep things simple. It'll just help you unless you like the technology aspect and you want to use something else.
There was a couple questions in the Whova app too, in the Q&A, and then there was also a couple questions in the chat as well about 506B, raising through a website and social media presence.
Okay. All right. Let me go to the chat bar first. So social media present, I already answered that. And can we raise capital for a 506B using the website? So 506B, you cannot advertise publicly, but what happens is, what you'll do is people who are coming to your website, you have some portal created where they have to put in the login information. So you're showing that you have a relationship. It's not just being broadcasted publicly, right? It's just in your investor portal. And then you could have questions that talk about, are they accredited or not accredited investor? What is that experience? And you need something to show that, you have a relationship. Maybe you're doing a phone call or something like that. But you definitely don't, for 506B, you definitely just don't want to put the website on the deal with the returns and all that stuff, because it could be considered as general solicitation. And let's see. Brandon, for Whova app, what are the questions? I've looked at the chat bar.
Yeah, so if you go into your session in Whova, and there should be a Q&A.
Okay, let's see.
If you have the Whova web page pulled up for the event and go to agenda, go to your session.
Okay.
And then inside of that, once you go into your session, you'll see the Q&A box there.
Yes, I do see it here. Okay, so the question is, can you tell how you started off with raising capital? So for me, it was just the smaller deals. I was buying the smaller deals, and I realized that at the end of the day, there's only so much of my own money I could invest. So these 3-unit, 4-unit deals, I started bringing investors in. And then I saw the opportunity. The pharmacists, the doctors I knew, they had no time or energy to learn about real estate investing. And then I figured my 3-unit, 5-unit deals are not going to work because there's more capital. So then I started going into multifamily syndication. That's how I started. My original goal was to focus on buying apartments, and I knew that you have to master this skill. You'll always need investor capital. Okay, and then let's see. Do you need 506B or 506C to raise capital from friends and family, or a simple LLC will do? So just a disclaimer, I'm not an attorney, so not giving any legal advice, because particular transaction and what you are doing, it could determine a lot. So there's no answer that I could just give you right on the top. It depends on how many members. Would they be passive investors? Would it be considered securities or not? The amount you're raising and all of those things that go into it. So I would highly recommend always, when it comes to raising money, use a good legal counsel just to make sure your personal situation, is being, you're following the regulations and all. How can you raise capital before you have accepted LOI on a property? This is a great question. So what I like to call this is soft commitment. So let's say if you're already buying some certain kind of properties in certain areas, and you already know that this is what the return structure look like, this is what the risk structure looks like. Even before you have the LOI, you could have some conversation with the investors, and then you could talk about it that, hey, I've done 1 deal or 2 deal or 3 deals, and on a general level, these are how my deals look like, and this is what I do with it. And then that way you will get to know from the investors if they like this, if it makes sense for them or not. And this way, what happens is right now you haven't submitted an LOI. The clock is not ticking. So this way, there's no pressure on the investor to ask you questions. Maybe you could meet a few more times. They get to know you as a person and your company. And then you ask them, hey, if a future deal comes across that fits this criteria, would you be open to taking a look at it? And they'll tell you, no, it's not my thing. Or yeah, sure, put me on the short list down. And the chances are, if they have already done some work and talked with you, they'll be interested in looking the deals. And once your LOI goes in, you could reach out to the investor and you have cut the curve. They already know you. They've already talked about it. You've already talked about the deal and all. Okay, let's see. Do you have a ready-made systems or templates for presentations that you offer students? How much help support in modifying that for individual needs? So making based on the business you are doing and your personal strategy and things like that, the core is getting that message out, the format I teach my students, and then you could hire like a designer or use some ready-made templates. I do give you a few templates and you could just put that information in there. But the actual work of redesigning, you could learn if you're tech savvy, or you could just hire somebody as a freelancer to tailor it to your needs. And once you get that done, you reuse the same template for most of the time because 80% of the information's same and you're just changing slides and things like that. Okay, let's see. Can you give some insight into what a newbie investor should look for in a mentor or coach in the multifamily arena? So as a newbie investor, the very first thing is you have to know what you need the coaching on. That's the very important piece. You have to know, do you need the information piece? Do you need somebody to keep you accountable? Do you need somebody to show you strategy? Do you need somebody to help you with mindset and, showing you what's possible? So you have to do a little bit of inventory on what is it that you actually need support with. And once you know that, then picking a mentor would be a little easier. And then you just look at the mentor's track record. And it's very important to have a fit, a personality fit, just to see you guys are on the same wavelength and things like that. And then after that, you just make a decision. And at the end of the day, there's all kinds of programs and things out there. You'll just have to pick something that you resonate with and what your particular outcomes are. That's very, very important as well. What does success look like for you? Does it look like buying the first apartment, or does it look like having all the systems in place? So the more clear you are on what your strengths are, what is that gap you're trying to close, it'll help you to pick a good mentor. I also see, could a newbie apply these 5 pillars and be successful? Absolutely. This has been created. It took me a lot of time and energy and reflection over the years. If I had used this when I started, if I had watched this presentation, I would have saved so much time and energy, and my success would have been even faster. But I'm learning these things in hindsight. So I hope you guys are able to get some value from this and apply this in your business and get some results. Okay, I have a thank you. Great presentation. Thank you so much. Happy that this helped you. I have, before you have accepted. Okay. Okay, I'm just making sure I'm not missing any question. So
just had a new one pop up. Said, did you use a 506B or C for your first deals when you did transition to PPM?
So it was the 506B, which means no general solicitation, having a pre-existing relationship with your investors.
Excellent. And if you have any more questions, just please be sure to put them in the Q&A box in the Hoova app. That way, they can get answered even after the session ends. So be sure to type them in the Hoova app, and we appreciate your participation. You are well up over almost 120 viewers there during your presentation. So it definitely resonated with everybody. Let's leave them real quick. You had the 5 pillars. If you just want to list those off, just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, what they are, and leave us with that final point.
Sure. So guys, again, the 5 pillars are the strategy, the marketing, the systems, the leverage, and the mindset. And the goal is this: when you have these pillars, it will take the time and energy to put them into your business, but then you could raise unlimited capital, because the goal is not to raise a little bit of money here, a little bit of money there. It's to build a system so you could grow your business indefinitely for the future.
And would you say that those are in order, the 1 through 5, or they kind of come as they take them as they come at you?
So they are somewhat in the order. If you are in the beginning phase, then it helps to have a strategy, and then put the marketing, and then put the systems, and then leverage. But the mindset is the one that kind of goes through all of those things, right? So if you're trying to create the strategy and you might feel slightly overwhelmed, or you're trying to make it perfect, and the mindset components kicking in and reminding you, you just need a strategy, not the perfect strategy, and you just need to get going.
Yeah, correct. We often say, version 1 is better than version none.
Yeah.
So just get out there and do it. You're going to make mistakes, but have the right mindset. As it's always take action, and you'll figure it out. I promise. Everybody listening here is very sharp and can figure it out. The key to this is taking action. Yeah. So again, reach out if you're interested in hearing more about, how to raise money, your coaching program. There's the contact information, ketanpatel.com. And you can also go to the exhibitor booth. You can message through that in Hoova. So be sure and reach out, take advantage of this opportunity. You've made this connection. We talk about networking. It's so hard to network this day and age with coronavirus, COVID-19, so this is how we're doing it right now. It's no longer, coming up and handing somebody a business card. It's right here. So take advantage of it. Add him to your contacts, make a connection there. And it's not about your net worth. It's about your network, right? And who you know and who can help you get to the next level by you helping them get to their next level. Going out through, in my experience, you never know who's going to be a part of your next deal. Somebody you met and you just met them, and then on down the road, they end up being a part of your life or part of a deal or something like that. So, always keep that in mind. And again, thank you so much for being with us and presenting and being with us here on a Saturday. So thank you so much for your time. And we'll be going to take a short break, but enjoy the rest of your Saturday.
Thank you so much, Brendan. And thank you, everybody, for attending and spending your precious time and attention with me, and wish you all the success in your future. Thank you, everybody.
All right. Have a good one.
Yeah, thank you.